Hey, this is Jolan from ForestEthics Advocacy. I just gave a presentation to the review panel that's assessing the Enbridge pipeline and tanker project. It was pretty powerful to be in the waiting room with dozens of other British Columbians who feel as passionately about stopping this project as I do. What I talked about was really how things have changed for me since I've had a nephew born into my family, and how much the decisions we make today around this project will impact him and his ability to enjoy the oil-free coast that we have today. I think that an oil spill would be so devastating in ways that we can only imagine. But we have a chance to really understand those impacts in a more personal way coming up at the end of the month. On January 31st, ForestEthics Advocacy is hosting survivors of oil spills in Kalamazoo, Michigan and northern Alberta to come to Vancouver and speak about their experiences and really talk about what happens to communities when there's an oil spill. So I think this is an important event for us to really appreciate how much is at stake and to strengthen our resolve. So come on the 31st, 7 p.m., bring friends. Good afternoon, I'm glad to be here on Coast Salish territories to tell you some of my thoughts about the Northern Gateway Pipeline and Tanker Project. I speak today not as a representative of any organization, but as a citizen who's spent my life on these unceded Indigenous lands we call British Columbia. Enbridge's multi-million-dollar ad campaign that splashed across televisions and newspapers across the country tells us that it's more than just a pipeline. And this may be one of the few areas where I agree with Enbridge. The Enbridge decision has implications that stretch far beyond the pipeline and tanker route, and certainly far outside the narrow terms of reference of this review process. It's not just a political, environmental, or economic decision, although it does have serious implications in all of these areas. At its core, the decision whether to approve or reject the Enbridge Northern Gateway project is a moral decision. It cuts right to the core of who we are as a society and what values we will choose to live by. So what will we choose? Will we choose to be a society that listens to local communities and First Nations? Or will we choose to be a society that listens to foreign corporations? Will we choose to respect our constitutional obligations to First Nations or break our own laws? Will we choose what's best for our children or what's best for business? The importance of this last question took on a new meaning for me this September when I became an uncle. My nephew Ronan is the most incredible little being I've ever met, and meeting him has changed me. He lives right by the ocean, and I like to imagine him playing with kelp on the beach, walking along the sand. If I know my brother, as soon as there's a wetsuit that fits him, he'll be learning to surf. Since Ronan was born, I've been thinking back to the significant things from my childhood, and although I grew up in the interior, some of my most vivid memories are from vacations to Vancouver Island. I remember chasing crabs in tide pools and marveling at the grotesque beauty of sea anemones. The ocean was alive in a way that seemed more fantasy than reality, and I still feel that way. I still feel that sense of wonder when I'm with the ocean. As soon as I was old enough to move away from home, I moved to Victoria to be with the ocean, and I learned to play guitar on the beach, composing duets with the crashing waves. I fell in love in an ocean lit up by phosphorescence. When my heart was broken, I consoled myself watching otters playing. The coast is animated with so many memories for me that it's like a living photo album. And if I lose these places, I lose a part of myself. I know you don't live here, but please understand that this is our home. This is where we raise our families. Our identity is woven into this place. I want to share these places with my nephew. I want him to grow up with the same opportunities that I've enjoyed. That won't be possible if the Enbridge project is built. If tankers are allowed on the coast, as we've seen with Exxon Valdez and countless other accidents, it's a matter of time before there's a spill, and just one accident could destroy all that makes this coast what it is to me. And even before there's a spill, the greenhouse gas emissions resulting from the new tar sands production required to fill the pipeline would threaten Ronan's future by pushing the global atmosphere close to the fatal climate change tipping point. And the increasing reliance on a volatile boom and bust resource economy would leave precarious economic prospects for my nephew. the temporary construction jobs that Enbridge promises, all 200 of them, would be long gone by the time he's old enough to work. When you and the Harper government make a decision on this project, you're making a decision about the world that Ronan inherits, my nephew. I implore you to think of him and the generations that will come after him when you think about this decision. If we continue this short-sighted decision-making that's characterized Canada's history, there will be nothing left for Ronan and his generation. From the fur trade to the gold rush to the Atlantic cod fishery, Canada has repeated a cycle of unsustainable resource development that destroys ecosystems and communities. Growing up in the interior, I've experienced firsthand the social cost when a boom and bust cycle hits bust. The community where I grew up was traditionally forest dependent, and I remember to this day coming back from university on the coast and rounding a corner to see that the forest that I've known since I was a kid turned orange with mountain pine beetle, which is a direct product of poor forest management and climate change. Those jobs aren't coming back. Those forests aren't coming back. We only get one chance. We need to learn from our history and break the cycle of jumping from one resource boom to the next. As each industry collapses, the ecological consequences become more severe. The tar sands mega project is already spewing more carbon into the atmosphere than thousands of cars, and it's growing at a rate that's incompatible with any meaningful action to address climate change. The Northern Gateway project would threaten sustainable industries, making our economy even more reliant on dirty fossil fuel industries at precisely the moment when we should be diversifying and investing in a transition towards a clean and just economy. The fallacy that we somehow owe our energy to developing countries is preposterous. Last year, thousands of Chinese folks in the port city of Ningbo violated a national ban on protests to fight against a planned refinery expansion because the air pollution in their city is making them sick. I haven't been able to find the details, but I imagine this could be one of the very refineries that Enbridge plans to ship the dirtiest oil in the earth to for refining. This is not about one country's interests over another country's interests. This is about the public interest over the corporate interest. Don't be on the wrong side of history. Make the moral decision and reject this insane project. First Nations have already made their decision. More than 130 nations have signed indigenous bans on the transport of tar sands oil through their territories through the Save the Fraser Declaration and the Coastal First Nations Declaration. I'm thankful for their leadership and honored to stand with them. A majority of British Columbians have also made their decision. Tens of thousands of British Columbians have expressed clear opposition with petitions, letters, protests, and more. The issue stretches across traditional political lines, with vocal opposition coming from faith groups, unions, businesses, local governments, grandmothers, and artists. We've already shown that we cannot be intimidated or silenced. When the Minister of Natural Resources attacked us, calling us radicals, we only got stronger. When Harper demonized environmental groups as enemies of the state and eco-terrorists, their memberships exploded and donations increased exponentially. When he gutted environmental legislation, it sparked the Idle No More movement, which is empowering First Nations and their settler allies to take action. When this panel tried to shut the public out of these public review hearings, thousands took to the streets and made so much noise that I'm sure you heard them. I'm here today to respectfully ask you to stand with us and reject this project. Even if you don't, we will stop it. But we need your help, and we're asking for your help. Whatever happens, we will take this issue to the streets and to the ballot box. We will elect governments that will join us in our fight. We will support First Nations in legal challenges in the Constitutional Court and the Supreme Court of Canada. If it comes down to it, we will put our bodies on the line. I would not hesitate to lay in front of a bulldozer.
Mr. Reilly,
if that's what it took.
I've cut your microphone. This is a technical review panel, and so that's the kind of information that we need to be able to do the best work that we can do. So making remarks and comments about potential civil disobedience and unlawful obstruction is not helpful to us. So would you please move to your next point? Thank you.
With respect to the panel, I was not talking.
Just keep moving. Thank you.
What I would be honored to do is to commit an act of civil obedience to help uphold the ancestral law of First Nations who have banned tar sands oil transport through their territories. I've made my decision. First Nations have made decisions. The people of British Columbia have made their decisions. And as you consider the choice that's before you, this moral choice with such far-reaching consequences, I urge you to listen to us. I urge you to have the courage to do what's right, not what's easiest. I urge you to recommend to the federal cabinet to reject the Northern Gateway Pipeline and Tanker Project and create room for sustainable, healthy, just economies.